Welcome to another After Action report for Trail Challenge. If you are part of Green Team or Red Team, I kindly request you to leave as this video is locked and that is your verbal warning to do so. If you are new to Trail Challenge, it is an ongoing event where teams try to take control of an entire map with the risk-like rules, but where the combat takes place on the actual maps by creations built by the teams. Each video will be mostly self-contained, however, it is recommended to go and watch the others. In no particular order, green attacked blue and captured space territory. Red attacked green and pushed them out of airborne completely, so now airborne is entirely red controlled. And blue tried and failed to attack red on the airborne map to retake some territory. Green and blue have now a truce, which means that from now on we will both focus on attacking red. Because frankly, if we don't, death is imminent for both of us, and although green could team up with red and quickly wipe us, blue team, off the map, that would also mean that green team would be left weakened against a much larger force, and the chances of them winning would be low. It is in their best interest to keep this balance, and it is in our best interest to make any alliance. Without getting too much into the details, I brought out the missiles again because I thought that this time they would work, since I actually had time to develop them and fix issues. So when blue attacked red, blue had 300 complexity and red had 700 complexity. This was probably a bad call, but at this point we were running out of ideas and starting to get desperate. So the thing that I did was I made the detonation manual. No proximity fuse errors, none of that nonsense. You just gotta get skilled enough to deal with the inherent delay of controlling remote-controlled vehicles, which is about half a second. Meaning you have to see half a second into the future and predict when you're about to impact the enemy. Which is hard, but it can be done with skill. They had good maneuverability. I had 5 missiles. They had a 15-meter kill radius, which is utterly massive for all practical purposes, and usually would be more than enough. And I had 5 of these missiles on one creation with all 3 teammates on them, meaning that there were 20 missiles in total. However, I tuned these missiles so that I could have more of them, and they were slower. This was because I expected to fight multiple smaller single aircraft enemies, as I have been predicting. Red Team, however, seems to show a trend towards creating single, larger craft, similar to what I have been doing. It is mostly Green Team and Green Team alone that has been going exclusively separate air vehicles. The problem with this is that by putting all the complexity onto a singular creation, that then allows them to have a higher top speed, since top speed is linked to the complexity per creation. Also, it turns out that the fundamental idea of using distance as a defensive measure doesn't really work without also going away from the area of combat sideways as well as upwards. Because we can be found eventually, and since our general location is known, since we don't really have lateral movement, over time we can and will be shot down. If I do this again, I will be using different environmental defenses to compensate. So I'll either be hiding in an underwater cave, or perhaps in one of the clouds, using the clouds as a sort of cloaking mechanism, or perhaps being very, very low to the ground and hiding in the clouds of the airborne map that are near the dead area, where you automatically die once you leave it. Part of the reason why I wanted to use distance specifically in the first place is because I can skip a whole bunch of nonsense by doing it. Because if I launch from underwater in a submarine type design, which would work quite well depending on the map, I would need an extra underwater booster stage for the missiles themselves. This extra booster stage would not only cost complexity, time, it would also reduce the lethality of the missiles, reduce the top speed, reduce the amount of missiles, and it would have knock-on effects of multiple other factors of the missiles. So it wouldn't just lower their top speed or just increase complexity, it would also decrease their effectiveness in multiple ways over. And a similar thing it would be needed on the ground. So while I could launch these current missiles vertically from the ground if I just turned them around, being on the ground is vulnerable. So unless I have cover, and I would be shot pretty quickly. And if I do have cover, launching them near the ground probably still isn't the best idea because of how sensitive and twitchy these missiles are. Guiding them through tiny gaps in terrain is still very difficult and would likely pose a danger. So unless I have some secondary mechanism to allow a safe exit, it would still end up being probably a problematic concept. An analysis on Red Team's vehicle, it used negative space. It was a U-shaped vehicle using quantum rudders and a couple of powered tail fins for its main source of aerodynamic stability. It had a cannon and a ball turret gunner in the gap of the U. When Green attacked Blue Team on the space map over USS Bork, or the wreck on the space map, because I had no space vehicles, I had to trust my buddy Radon. So what he created was basically a massive ring with a blaster, except it snapped in half whenever it turned too fast. That was fixed, but I still ended up encountering the issue. One of my core issues with it was that it had no redundancy. All the beams connecting the different parts, were singular beams. They were not even doubled up. This means that it had absolutely zero redundancy. Whenever trying to build any creation that needs to survive combat, just Google the defense onion, or whatever it's called, the protection onion. Basically, it lists that you need to protect your creation on multiple layers, and you need to account for every single layer. The layers are something along the lines of don't be spotted. If you're spotted, don't be hit. If you're hit, don't be penetrated. If you're penetrated, make sure you can still function with redundant systems and whatnot. If you can't function, make sure that you can repair yourself. And simply put, although the system did make sure that we weren't hit using negative space, in fact, it was very difficult to hit us, and there was definitely benefit from that. The fact that there was zero redundancy, and when we were hit, which by sheer luck will happen eventually, pretty much crippled us right away. An analysis on Green Team there was that Green Team was using Storm Tech, just starfighters. I don't know the right term for them. They had two lighter versions and one bigger version that they had more than enough. They had quantum rudders, but they had more than enough thrust to go past their speed limit. So they used speed sensors to pull out two quantum rudders to slow themselves down. They had no shields, which is expected, seeing as how they use up your weapons power cores, which are a limited resource. Something that I did not really expect is that, well, no, I guess I should have expected it. So Storm keeps on using hinges in his design to create angled and interesting looks. While I'm all for being able to make something that, yeah, form over function. That's what I was saying. Function over form, that type of stuff. Yeah. So although I fully believe that it's possible to do both well at the same time, it seems that in this specific rule set, it's almost impossible to use hinges because they use up 5 complexity. I would have expected a lot more armor because honestly, raw damage wise, I could probably beat him if I just built a normal fighter and I had the time to build one. Because like the seat was close to exposed. The fins were connected by a couple of attachment points only. They were not connected flat on. Some of the quantum rudders near the back were exposed, among multiple other things. Just small bits and bobs here that could be optimized. And using hinges for aesthetics rather than design, each hinge used for aesthetics, that's like 5 armor plates that could be placed on the body. Each armor plate could take about, what was it, 3 lasers, I believe? That's an easy, like, 15 laser shots protected if used right. I don't know. It's just small stuff like that that I find interesting. Other than blue team moving troops to the border so that instead of a 300 zone near the red 700, it's a 500 zone near the red 700. There's really not much more to discuss here. And that's about it for this one. I am happy to say, however, that we are nearing the actual weekly schedule. So soon enough, every episode that I post on here will be posted directly after the fight. That's it. Goodbye.